I met Phil. We served on the Haiti earthquake response team together. And that was the earthquake in 2021, 21, Phil, I think, yes, 21. It was pretty amazing. Within like 4 hours of that earthquake happening, the committee was stood up and started response immediately. So that was how we initially met, and done some other work together. And also when I had to go to Florida for my heart surgery, Phil and his wife Gail came to visit me, which was wonderful because we had never met in person. I couldn't be as friendly as I wanted to be, but I was very appreciative. So we are working on different committees together, disaster response committees. And it was Phil who invited me to join the DNA RAG. So, and he is the expert on the DNA RAG. So I will let him do all the talking.
My experience with disasters goes back, probably half the people in this meeting are too young to remember 3 Mile Island, but my office windows in Harrisburg, in Middletown, Pennsylvania, overlooked the cooling towers at TMI. And that was a real learning process about disaster preparedness and disaster planning. And the RAG, the disaster RAG, DNA RAG, Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group, has 2 main focuses. Actually, there's a third one, but the 2 main focuses are disaster preparedness and at all levels. And I'll swing back to that. And then long-term recovery. And Ken, earlier you mentioned first responder stuff. Organizationally, Rotary has for decades said we're not first responders. And there are a lot of really, really top-notch first responder organizations. And because we don't want to reinvent the wheel or get in the way, we will join that, but we let the first responders do their thing. And when I talk about long-term recovery, you said, let's see, Palav is from Nepal, correct?
Palav is from Nepal, correct, yes.
Yeah, yeah. We're working right now with a doctor from Australia who he's an obstetrician and gynecologist who has been going to Nepal since 2011, providing services for women, specifically treating I forget the name of it, but it's a but the clinic he was working in Delaka was destroyed in the earthquake in 2015. They've now broken ground on a hospital for women and babies in Delaka, and we're helping with that effort through our with our 501c3, helping collect money. He needs $1.4 million US. He's about 1.2 to complete this project. But when I say long term, it's now 2023. The earthquake in Nepal was 2015. That's 8 years ago. CNN left the building a long time ago. We're still working. Liz and I were on a meeting last week, I guess it was. The Haiti Earthquake Relief Committee meets now once a month. We were meeting twice a week, then once a week, then every 2 weeks. But we just approved the last project to restore some infrastructure in Haiti for $27,000. And one of the things that we've learned over a long period of time, because Liz mentioned us standing up within 4 hours after the earthquake in 2020, I think it was 2021 or whatever it was. The earthquake in 2010, which was it was a catastrophe beyond belief. I was speaking at a conference in Idaho in the US, and when I said to them that more people died that day in January of 2010 than lived in the state capital of Boise. Okay, or I don't know if it's state capital, it's their largest city. But 350,000 people perished that day. You can't wrap your arms around that. So, but that day, within probably half an hour, Dr. Claude Serena, who is a very active Rotarian, very active in our efforts in Haiti, was on the phone. We had deployed a network of satellite phones in the Caribbean in 2005 in preparation for just such an event. We didn't know what was going to happen or when it was going to happen. We just knew that we needed to be prepared. And District 7020, and Liz is in 7020, is the Northern Caribbean and the Bahamas. Every club in that district has a disaster committee. Every club in that district has a disaster plan. And every disaster plan is reviewed annually. So I always say that 7020 should be the poster child on how to prepare properly. And even then, when Hurricane Maria, and it was two different hurricanes, but we gave them one name. When Maria came, we were very prepared, and we were staging relief supplies in St. Croix, where Liz lives. And that was after Irma. And then how many days later was Maria, Liz?
It was just about 2 weeks. Just about two weeks.
We had all this stuff staged in St. Croix to distribute around the Caribbean. And here comes the second round, Maria, and it destroyed the port facilities, so that we had all the stuff prepared, but we couldn't do it. So I've never met a disaster that hasn't laughed at our disaster plan, but at least we have a plan. And having a plan is the critical issue, because otherwise you're going to run around in a circle going, oh my God, what do I do now? I just encourage people to join with us at DNA RAG. You can go to our website, dna-rag.com, and see what we do and come alongside us. Currently, and in the disability side, and I need to pull something up right now. I got an email this morning. My club has been working. We have a honorary member of our club who lives in France, and she has been doing work in Nepal for years. She goes to Nepal once or twice a year, and she's got a global grant that she's working on to provide all-terrain wheelchairs in Nepal. And it's a global grant. And it's been denied. And let me see if I can find Christine's note here. That's not the one she sent to this morning. As you probably know, the global grant we first submitted back in the spring was denied mainly because, and I'll leave the name out, at the Rotary Foundation, argued that the wheelchairs are neither a prevention nor a treatment of a disease. And our position is that whilst it's not a treatment for spinal cord injury, giving mobility to people with spinal cord injuries certainly would qualify. So we're reapplying for the same global grant with and trying to find some other way. I tell a story, and it's true. In 2000 and I'm trying to remember, it was 2016. I was in Chicago for the Council on Legislation, and we had a grant to rebuild a school in Nepal turned down. And it wasn't rebuilding the school. The school was being built by the community, but we needed, for that school, we needed desks and benches and computers and whiteboards and blackboards, whatever. And it was turned down. And I went up to Evanston. We had an afternoon off from the council and sat down with the same individual, in fact, who's named in this email. And I said, what do we need to do to get this passed? And she said, well, you need to teach a teacher a new skill. And I said, like what? Well, like sanitation. And so if they teach hand washing and they need, let's see, desks, benches, computers, blackboards, it'll qualify. And I mean, I was ready to blow my brains out because it was just stupid. But we got that grant and I had said to this individual, what do we need to do to make this work? And I'm going to contact Christine in France and say, let's not fight them. Let's find out what they want us to put in the grant application to make it work. Because clearly, all-terrain wheelchairs to provide mobility for people with spinal cord injuries, whilst they may not be a preventive. Oh, the other thing they wanted initially was list the people who are going to be using these wheelchairs. And we said, well, we don't know who's going to have the injuries yet. You know, if we know who's going to have the injuries, maybe we can prevent them. You know, some of the reasoning just boggles my mind occasionally, but we'll work past this. But we're working on a lot of different things in a lot of different places. I know you said someone was on here from Congo. We did some benches for schools in the Democrat, and after the volcano in Goma, we did some benches, and it had nothing to do with the volcano. But whilst we were talking to the district governors in 9500 and 90, I think it's 9510, we discovered that they needed these benches. So we did just a local contribution to purchase benches. But it's all about connections. We have to know who people are and where they are. We're available we at the RAG are available for anybody around the world. When we hear of an event like the volcanoes in Goma and we don't have connections, we just do some research, find out who governors are, and reach out to them and say, what can we do for you? And that's what we do. And hopefully I haven't confused you all too much. As I said, dna-rag.com. Look us up, and we love to have people join us. We're working on our structure right now. Our chairman would have been with us this morning, but he had an emergency crop up, so he cannot be with us this morning. And I'm open to any questions.
Sure. Thank you, Phil. I do have some questions. And maybe a couple of comments too, you know, and that person that you're dealing with basically needs some education and some awareness. I mean, that's the issue we're dealing with, a lack of knowledge of the subject. So we can help. We can help in that situation. We all have a team of people that have that knowledge that can help share it too. So when you face that situation, please think of us on that. Can you give me an idea though of what the RAG would do? Like, let me give an example. There's a hurricane in Haiti. What would you do? What would be the RAG doing at that point?
Well, we work with local districts in the Caribbean, for example. There's a pre-existing organization of 3+ districts. And when I say that, District 7000 is Puerto Rico, 7020 is 10 countries in the Northern Caribbean and the South Atlantic, or actually the North Atlantic in the Bahamas, because the Bahamas are not in the Caribbean. Shh, don't tell anyone. And then 7030 is the Southern Caribbean and Eastern South America, in Suriname, and oh God, I can't, but in total, I think in the 3 districts, there's 27 countries. Prior to a hurricane, and hurricanes are different than earthquakes. Hurricanes coming, we know a few days in advance. And typically that committee will stand up before a hurricane hits and come together, and it's either the district governor or their designee. Usually the district governor elect is involved, district disaster chairs. And then I have been sitting in on those meetings literally since 2010, as I guess an advisor or interested party from the RAG. And my dad was in Rotary in 7020. Well, it was District 720 before it was 7020. And so I've got roots in the Caribbean, but we're there before getting ready. They've got the plans in place, and we try and work with other organizations like Disaster Aid, Shelter Box, Water Survival Box. There are a number of organizations in the US. We work with Team Omicron. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're a bunch of military veterans who deploy. They're self-supporting, and they go out and they'll work alongside local first responders. And when I said 3+ districts, District 6990, which is Monroe County, which is the Keys, Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Grand Bahama Island. So they have one island in the Caribbean, or actually in the Bahamas. So they have a vested interest in that. But that's the kind of thing we do. Earthquakes,
So you would
tornadoes.
You would provide
Pardon?
money and planning, and
We-
coordination
what
of all the different groups to
What
bring them
we
together. Is that
do,
true?
what we do, particularly in developing countries, where there is a lack of infrastructure or a lack of, we provide a funding source. We will put up their requests on our website. They'll have the requests on their website for funds. We collect the funds, retain them in our 501c3, and then, for example, and we'll go back to the 7020, 7030, 7000. Their committee will solicit from clubs projects. Just tell us what projects are needed by your community. That committee then vets those projects, and when they are approved, they come to us and say, okay, you've got $300,000 you collected, send $27,550 to project 3042. And we use a very robust project management tool that was developed internally by a Rotarian who lives in Jamaica, and that project management tool tracks projects from inception, from conception, from the concept phase to completion. And it allows people on the ground, Rotarians or other interested parties, to upload reports, to upload photos. When they upload a report, and Liz tracks this stuff with us, they upload a report. It's geolocated and time-stamped. When they upload photos, geolocated and time-stamped, so we know where it was, what it was, what it looks like, and we require, or not we, their committee requires a preliminary report, interim report, and a final report. We've been very successful, and it allows us a tremendous amount of transparency. And one of the stories that I tell, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency in the U.S., which is part of the Department of Treasury, is suspect of money going into the Caribbean from the U.S. They want to make sure that those monies aren't buying drugs or guns. And I frequently will get calls from our bank, where I was this morning, saying we've got a request from our back office in Pittsburgh. The OCC wants to know why on this date this amount of money was sent, and I can go to the bank with my laptop and show them the photos and the reports. I can print that stuff and hand it to them, and the OCC says, okay, very good, thank you. So we got that level of transparency to show the government and to our donors, or not to our donors, but to donors in general, because they want to make sure that things are being done properly. And back when we were doing recovery from Irma Maria, past district governor Diana White from 7020, who now resides in the UK, was doing a weekly newsletter of what was transpiring as far as recovery efforts, projects, etc. So there's a lot of transparency involved, and it's done at the regional level. And when I say region, I know Rotary is looking at regionalization. DNA Reg is looking at regions a little differently. We have that region in the Caribbean. This week I was on a call with 8 districts in Florida that are trying to develop the same type of structure, where there will be a district disaster chair in every district, rather than having a club disaster chair in every club. We have clubs with 14 people, and we have clubs with 18 people, and we have clubs with 120 people. Well, a club with 14 people cannot have a disaster chair, but the assistant governor could have a disaster chair for their 6 or 8 clubs. You know, and that really makes a lot of sense. So it's a very fluid regional concept. In Brazil, we're dealing with 31 districts as a region. And we're working with Keshav Kumar. Pavel, you know him? In Nepal, Keshav is one of our board members. So we're trying to figure out whether it's, and see that there's a geopolitical issue here. If you say Nepal and India, that doesn't work. It really doesn't. So maybe Nepal, Bhutan. But we're trying to make it work based on the what works regionally. Recently, 2 months ago, I guess it was, Mike Terrelong in Jamaica and I did 4 hours of a webinar on a Saturday for zones 30 and 31 in the central part of the U.S. Missouri, Illinois, Mississippi, Tennessee, Ohio, and on disaster preparedness and long-term recovery. And that's another type of region. So we're trying to figure out what works locally, and it's very fluid.
So Phil, what defines a disaster?
Great question. If a tree falls on your house, that's a disaster for you.
Right.
We were at a breakout in Melbourne, and the same question hit the floor. And in fact, Rotary, with its disaster grants, has just come up with something, and I haven't figured out what it means, but they talk about disasters of scale. Hi, Bob.
Good morning.
Bob Stewart has joined us.
Oh, nice. Nice to see you, Bob.
What is a disaster? And it depends. You know, a tornado in Tupelo, Mississippi, that wipes out a small community is a disaster in that community. Or when we were in Melbourne, we were talking at one of the breakouts, and there was a lady there from Pakistan, and the flooding in Pakistan displaced 40 million people. I'd say that's a disaster. You know, so
I know right now I saw in some video on floods in India. That would be a disaster.
yeah.
Phil,
So-
this is Bob Stewart.
Go ahead,
Can you
Bob.
hear me?
Yeah.
Beth Stubbs sent me a copy of the trustee decision as to the criteria for a specific fund. And I'm going to share that with you, but if you want, I can go through that basically.
Yes, please.
One, it reaffirms individual disaster response funds and grants, but it agrees that a disaster of magnitude is eligible. And if it meets 3 of the following criteria: 1, it is a natural disaster. 2, it is at least 1 million people impacted, including physical injury or death, prolonged disruption of services, property damage, psychological distress, and physical displacement. 3, it receives global news coverage. 4, the economic capacity of the impacted area requires outside assistance for short-term stabilization and relief. And it delegates authority to the trustee chair to establish the disaster of magnitude fund, and covers the rest. That, I believe, was adopted in the April 2023 trustees meeting.
All right, so see if I understand this correctly. So let me go back to the situation that I saw in the flooding in India. So there is flooding in India, and it meets many of the criteria you just mentioned. So what is needed at that point is somebody in a district governor in that region to put a request in for help. Is that how that works?
I would believe that to be accurate.
Okay.
The district governor would touch base with the secretariat, and the trustee chair is the one who makes those decisions. And I'm sure that there's a committee along with the trustee chair.
Ken, there's a caveat to that. There was a major event in Afghanistan. We don't have a district governor there.
It does not say that it has to go through the district governor. But that would be the logical.
Yeah, it would be the logical, but I know when we were trying to figure out how to address the event in Afghanistan, there are 3 clubs, but none of them are attached to a district. I think they're called special. Bob, you might know the terminology, but they kind of float out there in the nether. But that's a very special. That's a one-off. Okay.
Okay, so then it can be at a club level too, than what you're saying. So then what am I asking you for? I'm asking you for funding. I'm asking you for coordination of support. Is that what I'm asking for?
Yeah, I said there were three, and I mentioned two. The third one is we act as a communication portal between impacted areas and the rest of the world.
Okay,
And it gives us a central point of focus, gives because otherwise people don't know where to look or where to go. So our mission then, as far as communication, is being a central point for people to come to, and either in the impacted area or from other areas wanting to provide assistance to the impacted area.
okay, great.
Would you say that's accurate, Bob?
I'm sorry, I was trying to track some items on this, so.
Yeah, we want to be the central point of communication if we can.
Yeah.
Good. And we're down to the last 10 minutes. Does anybody else have some questions? Elliot?
Yeah, yeah.
Elliot?
Elliot?
Go ahead.
Thank you, guys. I'm curious, do you have sample plans or documents that you can share so that we can encourage clubs to adopt disaster planning? It's there's a few that have it, but not many, and we'd like to encourage that.
We have some templates on our website. One of the things that we've discovered is that it needs to be, whatever we put up needs to be custom or modified for local usage. There's not one size fits all.
Mhm.
One of the beauties of putting up something that's very general is that it allows you to customize it to your local use.
Elliot,
That's another.
yeah,
Liz?
Elliot, I can share the one that my club is using. It's actually used by three of the four clubs here on St. Croix, and it includes, it was, I think, 8 different emergencies that FEMA and OSHA had agreed on, and we've added, I added at the recommendation of our VITEMA, which is our state agency, 2 more, cybersecurity and active shooter. So there's now, I think, 9 or 10 of them in there. But like I said, it's used by 3 of the 4 clubs. And I put in the chat that in our district 7020, just about every single club has a disaster plan. Or
Yeah.
actually we call them emergency plans because you get an emergency before you have a disaster. So our emergency plans, they're fairly comprehensive and deal with a number of different types of emergencies. And in there, I don't know if you've heard of CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. The first section of that is chapter 1 from the CERT manual. So if you just put your email in the chat, I'll make sure you get a copy of that.
I did, Liz. It's there now. Thank you so much.
That is another
Ken,
area, that is another
Sorry.
area with the expansion given us by iMember in our data system. Our hope is to place more materials in the resource section of the website so that you or any club could go to the website and have examples that they might utilize in preparing a policy or manual.
And there's something that I really brushed by. I referenced it a little bit, but there's a vast difference between disaster response in the United States and our possessions like St. Croix and elsewhere in the world. In the US, we have a really good safety net. whether it's Red Cross, FEMA. I know in our county, in Palm Beach County in Florida, our disaster organization is housed in a structure that could take a direct hit from a nuclear device. But then you go to less developed countries, and it's an entirely different world. And Bob and I served on what was it, the NERI DAF, one of our wonderful acronyms, the Nepal Emergency or Earthquake Relief Initiative Donor Advised Fund Committee. And one of the lessons we learned there was you need to get out with your appeals the day of the event, because if you don't, you're going to miss the news cycle and you're going to miss the opportunity to raise funds. But the infrastructure in Nepal for recovery just wasn't there. Believe me, the infrastructure in Haiti wasn't there, and it still is not there. But we have the facility working through Rotary clubs because our members live there to make an impact. When I say our members, I'm talking about our Rotary members. And hopefully the members of the RAG are in position to determine what the needs are, doing needs assessments, developing projects, and working on those projects, local hands on, feet on the ground. And that's a huge difference. And it gives us a great advantage.
And just quickly, Bob, just a quick summary of what we are and what we're doing. We're not all Rotarians in this room or in our group, but we're working through the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy to create. Our goal is that when disaster plans are being made by countries, to make sure that people with disabilities are included in the training and in the planning for disasters around the world. We're going to eventually produce guidelines that are universal, that we hope through Rotary we can distribute to different countries so that they make sure that people with disabilities are included in the planning, both for the training of the first responders and also for the families that are dealing with the situation. As you can imagine, somebody with a disability, whether it be somebody in a wheelchair who is in the middle of a situation, a disaster, and maybe have to abandon that wheelchair, that's traumatic for that person. Or somebody who has autism, who is basically autism oftentimes can't deal with overstimulation. So to come across somebody with autism in a disaster situation, knowing how to deal with that particular person. So that's our ultimate goal on what we're doing here. We're in our first stage, and that first stage is to educate ourselves, to make sure we understand before we move forward. So we're at that point. So much appreciate what you are doing, what Rotary is doing, and all the things you've already done and will continue to do. Well, we look forward to continue to work with you. We're blessed to have Liz on both your organization and our organization. Much appreciate that, that connection there. I don't know the makeup of your board, but you may want to sometime consider, if you don't already, have somebody with disabilities on your board to bring in that voice in for disaster situations. That would be much appreciated. Anybody else have any final comments? We're down to the last 2 minutes here.
Yes, please, Nema.
Go ahead, Nima, from
Thank you
Congo,
so much.
from the District Democratic
Yes,
Republic of
yes.
Congo.
Thank you so much for giving me this really big platform. But disaster we have like in Congo, what time we have like a volcano in Goma is in North Kivu, and the South Kivu we have also fires. Sometimes fires. I have a friend, a very close friend, a woman. with disability, we have a fire come and take many housing together. And the people with disability, we don't have, for example, in our places, they don't have a wheelchair, they don't have how to do. I really, for myself, I appreciate so much for this organization that maybe they will go to help us, and we can't do ourselves like doing project like my dear sister, she said they have this, Lisa, she said this project, $500,000 or whatever project for disaster for people with disabilities. For example, for me, always you don't have a capacity to manage money, but I'm so appreciative for this initiative, and I'm going also to adapt this program they are going to give us and to see how we can work with other Rotary Club, because they always discriminating as people with disability, especially women with disability. Thank you so much for giving this really big platform, and they will be there for, we can't learn way for us is we with disabilities in DRC is in no way, we don't have car to driving, we don't have, it's only people come pick you up. That is where I can share with you right now, but I really appreciate. And if you have that project, we can apply that proposals, but problem is now we have this platform who can give us possibility and opportunity to work on this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nima. Thank you. We're blessed to have Nima is a member of the World Disability Advocacy Club, and we're blessed to have her on board. Pallav.
Thank you, PDG, Phil, and Robert for this update. So, I was last time I was communication with the Kesav, PDG Kesav, and we discussed more about this DNG RAC thing that they are working in Nepal. So thank you, the Rotary, the supporting in many contexts of Nepal. So actually, in Nepal, we are working more intensely in the disability inclusive disaster risk reduction. So we are trying to build a different community that can help pursue disability during the disaster. So I am trying to, my one thing is that I'm trying to take the membership of DNGRAC, but we don't have a PayPal system in Nepal, so I couldn't approach for that. So do you have any alternative so that I can get the membership of that thing? And next is we are developing the training manual for all those people who are linked with the disaster. For example, in the government, the first responder, and for the, it is also useful for Rotarian. So is it possible that we can apply that kind of funding in a Rotary global grant so that it can help our mission to elaborate, to work more to aware people, do the DNGRAC support for this awareness campaign or not? So this is my question. Thank you.
Phil or Bob?
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, we just this week switched our payment platform from PayPal, or I think PayPal is still there, but we've switched to a new payment platform, recognizing the fact that PayPal is not recognized in probably half the countries in the world. And through, Bob mentioned iMembers, which is our data management platform. We were able to switch to a new platform that'll allow people from all over the world to join us without the hurdles that we had. I'm thinking, you know, Ken, you mentioned having board members with disabilities. We had a board member, and he I don't know why John pulled out, but John lives in an electric wheelchair. And Bob, we need to get John back.
He was committed, as most Rotarians, in a number of different activities and he wanted to step back. He's still with us, and he's helped out in regard to disaster response grants. Whenever I need his assistance, he's there. But he has been an active member, and he was basically in charge of our website and Facebook, along
Yeah.
with Jeff Brennan.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know
okay.
whether it was covered earlier, but clearly your group has our attention at DNA board level, and Liz being a member of both, I believe at the last board member, we authorized Liz to continue the efforts to build and strengthen the relationship, and we want to include you in our communications and establish a link on our website and make sure that we're working together.
Super. Very
And
much
Bob, I did
appreciated.
invite them all to join.
I already joined. I've already come on board, so.
Okay.
Phil, just,
Ken,
what is that system you're using? Because I mean, I collect dues from around the world, and I know the problem with PayPal. So what is the system you're using?
Bill?
iMembers is a derivative of DNA RAG. And they've developed this CRM, customer relationship management platform for organizations like RAGs, and they've used us and SRAG as a test bed because they're marketing it out within the RAG world and also outside of Rotary for large international organizations.
Okay, great.
Because believe me, the RAGs, and Bob knows this, he's just concluded 2 years as the RAGs council chair. The RAGs don't have not had a really good ability to figure out who their members are, how to bill them, you know, who's a member, who isn't a member, who are their friends, you know, a lot of things. Ken, I want to be in touch with you though, outside of this, to talk about this global grant, because this is just goofy.
Great, I appreciate it. We appreciate all you do. We appreciate all you do. We much appreciate the fact that you are recognizing our mission. And we certainly would like to continue to work with you. I mean, final question there, how does anybody in this room or anybody in the group that would be listening outside or watching the recording, get in touch with the organization?
Hold on.
Bill is,
Liz, yeah,
Go
I've been designated by President Gordon as the point person for our RAG for that type of questions.
Okay, great. So is it your personal email or is it the RAG's email that we write to?
Yeah, no, it's my personal email, phil.lustig3@gmail.com.
Okay, great.
we felt that one person ought to be coordinating and making sure that it carries through rather than having multiple individuals.
If we had a half a dozen people, we wouldn't know who was responsible. This way it comes to me and I can send it out to the, and at least we'll have some modicum of control.
Okay, great. It makes a lot of sense. Much appreciate everything you're doing. And we look forward to the future working together on this. Okay, and thank you very much. And I wish you
All
all
right,
a good
Ken,
day.
thank you. Liz, thank you for setting this up. Or Ken, thank you for setting it up.
No,
Bob?
Liz has put this together, so we're happy.
Yeah.
We're gonna have other speakers. We'll keep you on our mailing list so that we're gonna get people from a lot of different organizations talking to us. So, okay, thank you all.
All right.
Y'all have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Take care.